But hello, thanks for coming to my talk. Thank you also to Bjorn for your hospitality and for inviting me. Well, in fact, I invited myself, but for receiving my self-invitation so graciously and for allowing me to teach here at University of Iceland. Okay, so my research is on film, but it's also on Spanish cultural studies, and these two areas hopefully come together in this talk. Basically, the starting point here is, well, I'll just give you a bit of context. In Spain, 80% of all films and television programs every year are dubbed. Okay, and this is something that I found very, very interesting after having lived in Spain and being British, where we do not have the tradition of dubbing, foreign films. What I found fascinating is that most audiences, although not all, most audiences have no problem with the fact that films are being dubbed. In fact, they seem to like it. Many. So they seem to like the fact that there is an actor speaking with the disembodied voice of another actor. This doesn't seem to be a problem for them. So I thought, well, this is interesting. I'm going to try and get my head around that. Okay. So that was basically the starting point for my research on the voice. And so recently I've just this has just come out, in fact, last month. It's a co-edited book on the voice in cinema, and it has different chapters covering different national cinemas throughout the world. And one thing that I found out through creating this book was the fact that the relationship between voice and body, or sound and image, that we're very, very used to, is by no means universal across the world. Yeah, different audiences have different ways of receiving the relationship between sound and image, the voice and body in film. And so I think a comparative approach is a useful one there. So for instance, in India, they have in Bollywood playback singers. Yeah, have you heard of these? So audiences go to watch Bollywood films in order to listen to their favorite singer, yeah? But quite often that voice will be attached to 5 or 6 different actors who dub, well, who are being dubbed by this singer. So it's the voice or the sound has primacy over the image, over the body. Okay, so those are just a few words of kind of broader context. My paper today is looking at, in particular, at Spanish and Catalan dubbing, with a particular focus on Woody Allen's dubbing actor, his regular dubbing actor, Joan Pera, okay, as we see him there, okay? So, although Woody Allen did not make a physical appearance in the 2008 film Vicky Cristina Barcelona, his voice was supposed to be made visible to Spanish and Catalan-speaking audiences, at least. Joan Pera, the dubbing actor known to millions of viewers in Spain as the Spanish and Catalan voice of Woody Allen, was originally meant to perform a cameo role in the film, okay, which I think is quite fascinating. Woody Allen has, over the years, come to love the sound of his own voice in Spanish. And the pair, Woody Allen and Joan Pera, have met up with each other on several occasions. In 2003, Woody Allen joked that Joan Pera made him sound more heroic than he really was. Joan Pera, in return, has congratulated Woody Allen on playing himself, I quote, almost as well as I do, end quote. Yet if Joan Pera's most celebrated performance is that of a disembodied voice, his walk-on appearance in Vicky Cristina Barcelona as a voiceless body sadly failed to survive the final version of the film. It was cut out. So not only was it edited out of the film, but so too were the few scenes in the film where Catalan was actually spoken by any of the actors. Okay, so as you know, Vicky Cristina Barcelona, set in Barcelona, which is in Catalonia, where people speak Catalan, okay, as well as, you know, English and Spanish sometimes. But anyway, this was a crucial omission which perhaps reveals the way in which Woody Allen frequently misunderstands the European cultures he seeks to represent. Rather like the relationship between the dubbed voice and its corresponding image, Woody Allen's films are frequently populated with characters that are somewhat out of place and out of sync with their geographical surroundings. These characters might be said to echo Woody Allen's own cultural dislocation, that of a Jewish American who, according to Greg Bachman, is, I quote, neither here nor there, cast adrift in a society, I quote, not ready to fully embrace him, and a religion and a culture he is not fully capable of embracing, end quote. As this chapter will show, Woody Allen's approach to the voice, to vocal performance, also provides a broader way of understanding the ventriloquism of the dubbed voice in film. In particular, this paper will explore the relationship between Woody Allen and his Spanish double, Joan Pera, in order to explore the broader significance of Spanish dubbing. So I'll show how dubbing is an integral part of Spanish film practices through Woody Allen's voice, or through his Spanish voice, before then considering the actual sound of the dubbed voice, which I think is something that hasn't really been explored in film studies yet. Okay, so instantly recognizable and endlessly imitated, Woody Allen's comic voice is as distinctive as it is ubiquitous. As the French critic Robert Benayoun has observed, long before he gave his films their own distinctive look, Woody had been known as a voice, or rather a whole conversation piece. Nasal in timbre, high-pitched, his voice has become known as a series of tics and inflections, a flow of speech frequently punctuated by pauses, repetitions, stammers, I know. His vocal performance is as much an expression of his cultural status, that of a Jewish intellectual from Brooklyn, as it is of his interior life. It is one that appears to be inseparable from the sheer physicality of his kind of frail body, whose orchestration of hand gestures and tensely hunched shoulders visually underline each and every word. Yet, Woody Allen would also appear to be a master ventriloquist. When not appearing as an actor in his own films, his voice is often famously heard through a number of substitutes and surrogates, actors who appear to double for Woody Allen. So take, for instance, Owen Wilson, who plays the Woody Allen character in Midnight in Paris, or Larry David, who self-consciously reenacts his style of performance in Whatever Works. Then you have Jesse Eisenberg imitating his dialogue in To Rome with Love. You have Kenneth Branagh in Celebrity. And in fact, Kenneth Branagh said in an interview that when Woody Allen is directing his actors, what he does is he'll give you the line to read and say, read it in the way that I've just said. So he wants the actors to imitate what he's just said in the same intonation. You just have to copy him, according to this interview. So Woody Allen's voice unsettles the divide between performance and impersonation. But it also, I think, illustrates the paradoxical thing about the voice. So according to the philosopher Stephen Connor, the voice is fundamentally split. Okay, while it originates deep from within your body, vocalizing also requires the voice to move from the inside to the outside, into space, resonating from the mouth and through kind of space through airwaves. So where is the voice? Is it in me? Is it outside of me? Passing from inside to the outside, the voice always brings the body into its vocalizations, but must also exceed the body. Okay? So here, Allen's voice appears to exceed his body in perhaps its most literal expression. It kind of merges with that of his doubles. So Woody Allen's voice kind of becomes dispersed across the body of his films, across the body of his filmmaking, whether or not he's appearing in the film or not as an actor. If Woody Allen has repeatedly lent his voice to other actors, his comic persona has similarly borrowed from a generous variety of different sources and identities. Woody Allen has become known as a kind of human chameleon, a persona which was self-consciously cemented in his role in the 1983 film Zelig, in which the actor kind of transforms his appearance into those that surround him. Indeed, in an article entitled "Which Woody Allen?", the author, Glenn, points to one of Allen's most famous aphorisms, which is, he said once, my one regret in life is that I am not someone else. And notoriously ambivalent about his celebrity status, he once turned up for an interview for New York Daily News in full disguise. Okay? So it's very, very interesting. I think that he's been very interested in the voice, and in particular the split between the body and the voice right from the beginning of his career. His first feature-length film, the rarely seen What's Up, Tiger Lily, Woody Allen took a Japanese spy film, International Secret Police, Key of Keys, and redubbed it with a cast of American voices, including his own. Okay, so it's a kind of reassembled, redubbed Japanese film. However, it does have an opening sequence in English, which features Woody Allen.
Here, chatting with Woody Allen, the author of this film. Woody, is the word author quite the correct word to use? I mean, what exactly did you do with that film?
Well, let me see if I can explain this to you accurately. They wanted in Hollywood to make the definitive spy picture.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to me to supervise the project, because I think that if you know me at all, you know that debt is my bread,
mm-hmm.
and danger my butter. Oh, no, danger's my bread and death is my butter. I'm sorry. No, wait. Danger's my bread. Death? No, death. No, I'm sorry. Death and danger are my various breads and various butters. Right? So, we took a Japanese film, made in Japan by Japanese actors and actresses. We bought it. And it's a great film, beautiful color, and there's raping and looting and killing in it. And I took out all the soundtrack. I knocked out all their voices, and I wrote a comedy. And I got together with some actors and actresses, and we put our comedy in where they were formerly raping and looting. And the result is a movie where people are running around, killing one another, and, you know, doing all those James Bondian things. But what's coming out of their mouth is something wholly other.
I see.
Okay, so what's coming out of their mouth is something wholly other. Okay, so it's the kind of otherness that I want to think about here. So moving on to kind of dubbing, the use of the word dub, or to dub in English, to denote to denote the meaning of providing a film soundtrack with a different language, came into use in English in the 1920s, the decade in which, as you know, the sound film was introduced. Significantly, the word dub in English comes from double, yeah? It comes from the verb to double. So if you read kind of early film criticism from the 1920s, you read doubling rather than dubbing, okay? This uncanny kind of meaning, or this more uncanny meaning to double, is still kept within other languages. So, for instance, in French, the word to dub in French is doubler. In Italian, doppiare. And most crucially in Spanish, doblar, yeah, where we get doblaje. So it's doubling. What is it in Icelandic? So it's just, you don't have a kind of one verb, you'd have to, yeah, you'd have to come up with an expression to.
Well, tal is speech and setja is put, so it's putting speech.
Putting speech.
So to speak.
Okay, interesting, right, so it's gone.
But professionals all say dub.
They all say dub, yeah, right,
dub.
Okay. Double is derived from the Latin duplare, from, sorry for the language lesson, from duplus, from where we get the word duplicity, okay? Duplicity meaning kind of tricking or deceiving, deception. So if in substituting one voice with another, dubbing is duplicitous, deceiving, it also brings into question a closely related meaning, and that is twice as many, double, yeah? Because if we think about it, the dubbed voice offers up two sites of identification for the viewer. The body of the original actor, yeah, but also his or her double, the dubbing artist. So significantly, Woody Allen, who famously has strict control over all stages of the filmmaking process, from casting, scripting, to sound design, also has a final say over the dubbing of his voice into other languages. And this is something I mentioned to your students on Monday. Over the years, regular dubbing artists perform his voice as well as providing the overdubbing of his media appearances in chat shows, news programs, so that there is a symbiotic relationship between body and dubbing actor. For instance, in Italy, Oreste Lionello famously dubbed all of Woody Allen's films and media appearances into Italian. Following his death in 2009, Woody Allen said that Leonello, I quote, made me a much better actor than I really am, end quote. In Germany, Wolfgang Draeger was widely known as the German voice of Woody Allen's films until To Rome with Love, whereupon the director dropped the dubbing artist for sounding too old, in spite of the fact that Woody Allen, in his first acting appearance in 5 years, plays the role of a grandfather. For his part, Joan Pera replaced the older dubbing actor Miguel Ángel Valdivieso as the Spanish voice of Woody Allen in 1988, after the former dubbing artist died unexpectedly. Joan Pera was auditioned for the role along with several other actors, as well as attending a private interview with Woody Allen, in which the director sat down and told him that he was his little European miracle. Yeah. The association between Joan Pera's voice and Allen's body has become so deeply embedded in the popular imagination of Spanish audiences ever since that when Joan Pera has commented that he is now only able to find work dubbing Woody Allen. His status as Allen's double has been bolstered in frequent media interviews in Spain, such as one in which Allen joked that people approach him in New York to ask if he is Joan Pera. Okay, so Joan Pera is among a small number of prominent Spanish dubbing artists who, through their regular association with certain Hollywood stars, have become what I would like to call vocal personas in their own right. So, for instance, and I don't have the slide there for some reason, the dubbing actor Constantino Romero, who died in 2013, provided the voice of Clint Eastwood, as well as Darth Vader and Mufasa of The Lion King. In addition to Romero and Pera, the actor, or the dubbing actor Ramon Langa, is a hugely popular voice of Bruce Willis. And Ricardo Solans has dubbed Robert De Niro and Sylvester Stallone. So, like his contemporaries, Joan Pera is able to command higher fees than many other dubbing actors who revoice less popular or famous stars. So there's a real kind of hierarchy of dubbing actors, all getting different fees, all doing different types of work. This is largely in keeping with other major European dubbing markets, namely Germany, Italy, and perhaps less frequently France, in which top dubbing artists have been able to build an entire career from being the foreign voice of a particular American star. Indeed, this has often caused problems for distributors when one particular voice becomes so identified with an on-screen image that the actor concerned feels able to keep pushing up their fee demands. So much of this kind of film dubbing industry centers on this kind of star system, or this quasi-star system, in which the most popular dubbing actors seek to establish authorship over their performances through carefully controlling the roles that they dub. Now, this symbiotic relationship between star body and dubbing voice has become a common feature in Spanish dubbing since the 1940s. And this continuity between the dubbing actor on the one hand and the star on the other has proved to be the most conspicuous when it has been broken. And Spain is a very interesting case in point here. So, as you might know, in Spain, there was a dictatorship from 1939 to 1975 under Francisco Franco, under which all foreign films, by law, had to be dubbed. They had to be dubbed. They had to be dubbed so that the censors could actually rewrite the scripts, yeah, to make sure that they were in keeping with, you know, the Catholic Francoist ideology. Now, after censorship was lifted in 1977, many foreign films that had been previously dubbed were then reissued, were then redubbed with new dialogues, yeah, commissioned usually by Televisión Española, yeah, the state Spanish network. These new prints were more faithful to the original scripts. But think about it, I mean, there's something very, very strange. So in the 1980s, you're watching, say, Casablanca, but all the voices sound like they're from the 1980s, yeah? Recorded with different types of microphones. Yeah, so it's something very, very strange. A case in point, Humphrey Bogart's Spanish voice belonged most famously to José Guardiola, who had a very, very deep, rich voice, by the way, which sounded nothing like kind of Humphrey Bogart's kind of nasal voice. And his, you know, replacements, his dubbing replacements in the 1980s, post-censorship, were very, very disorientating for Spanish audiences. And the sound was completely different because it was using different kind of technology, different equipment.
But it was the same actor.
So no, it was a different actor. So, sorry if I haven't clarified that. No, it was a different actor. So my point here is that, you know, when censorship was lifted and these films were redubbed, we have new generations of actors. Not always, but often, and it's very kind of jarring. Okay, so how am I doing for time? So an example of how Spanish censors, Spanish dubbing had very, very kind of ideological purposes is, for instance, in the film Mogambo, and this is a famous example from 1953, the censors, who, you know, were Catholics, attempted to cut out, censor all possible allusions to adultery in the film, so that the script was rewritten so that Grace Kelly and Donald Sinden were presented as brother and sister, yeah, rather than lovers. Okay, so inadvertently creating something that was a lot more taboo, and there were all kinds of stories like this. But more intriguingly, and now I'm going to loop back, kind of in a circular fashion, to Vicky Cristina Barcelona. All films were dubbed into Spanish, but into one particular type of Spanish, a kind of standard, what we would call Castilian Spanish, the type of Spanish that might be spoken in, say, Salamanca. Are you Spanish? Ah, okay. Oh, right, okay. I'm going to mention Catalan in a minute, yeah. And as you yourself will know, Spain has many other languages. So dubbing into just one language, and that language being Castilian, neutral, increased the marginalization of Spain's other historic languages, such as Basque and Catalan, whose presence had been banned in public. Intriguingly, the spectre, or this kind of ghost of linguistic centralization, appears to kind of haunt the production of Vicky Cristina Barcelona. At the time of its release, the critic Jaime Pena complained about the lack of linguistic diversity represented in the film. So indeed, Catalan language is completely absent throughout the whole film, which is particularly unfortunate because if you've seen the film, you know that the titular Vicky, the character Vicky, why has she come to Barcelona? Can you remember? Anyone seen this film? Why does she go to Barcelona? For what purpose? To study for a master's in Catalan culture, okay? And you see her eating in a kind of Catalan restaurant, and that's basically her exposure to Catalan culture. So that Joan Pera's cameo was supposed to be silent, therefore is not without irony, okay? Given that quite unlike the film's other indigenous stars, kind of Penelope Cruz and Javier Bardem, who come from Madrid and Gran Canaria, Joan Pera was one of the few authentic Catalan voices to appear in the film, because he's not just the Spanish dubbing actor, he's the Catalan one as well. Okay, so for the final part of this paper, I'm going to start considering the actual sound of the dubbed voice, something that I think is quite interesting. So Joan Pera has frequently commented on the difficulty he has faced when dubbing Woody Allen. One of its most difficult aspects, he says, is the need to reproduce the way in which he breaks up sentences and emphasizes certain words. Indeed, synchronizing his voice with Woody Allen's speech patterns, which are cluttered with stammers, hesitant pauses, and persistent you knows, while at the same time remaining legible to the audience, is one of the most significant challenges that his dubbing actors face. And I've just realized that I've not actually played an example of the voice in Spanish of Woody Allen. So should we...
¿Harry Block?
Sí, ¿tú eres Cookie?
Cookie Williams. Dijiste que viniera a las 10.
¿Sí? Caray. Así que... ¿Quieres que vayamos al grano?
Ah, ¿no quieres que hablemos un poco?
¿Hablar? ¿Por qué?
Ah, ¿de veras? A la mayoría de los tíos no les gusta ir al catre sin hablar antes un poquito. Les parece demasiado comercial.
Oh, no, a mí no. Yo no es que me ates.
Como tú quieras, pero antes arreglamos la parte monetaria y ya nos quedamos tranquilos.
Por supuesto, cobras 200, ¿no?
Eso es.
Aquí tienes.
De acuerdo, así que quieres que te ate, ¿es eso?
Sí, átame. Quiero que me pegues un poco y me hagas un francés.
Bien, un francés y te pego.
No. Me pegas y luego el francés. Lo quiero en el orden correcto, si no, no tiene gracia.
Okay, so sounds similar, but doesn't at the same time. It's kind of quite uncanny. So his stammer, his hesitant pauses, these are some of the challenges that dubbing actors face. Intriguingly, in 2013, Huffington Post produced an internet mashup video of every single stammer, yeah, wait for it, that Woody Allen has ever performed, edited together in a kind of 44-minute video, right?
No,
I want to, plus, you know, and I used to, I mean, I wanted to, I don't know, you know, and I don't know, you know, and we, she was, and she, you know, she was. I mean, that's it.
What did you do?
You mean?
Okay, so I'm going to spare you, but you could actually sit and watch that for 44 minutes, which I think would be quite interesting because it has kind of quite hypnotic effect. Now, this is a fascinating alternative take on Woody Allen's vocal performance here. So if he's known for being kind of hyper-articulate, here we're hearing the absolute opposite, you know, kind of you knows. Sentences are kind of substituted here for pre-verbal sounds. Now, the writer Brandon LaBelle writes that stammering or stuttering is an example of communication at the very edges of language. Yeah, a mode of speech that unsettles or questions what we mean by speech itself. Stammering, he writes, reminds us of what he calls the material poetics of language. So, in other words, the voice, not just as kind of language, but the voice as sound, okay? And I think this has often been forgotten about when we write about dubbing, when we write about the voice. The voice is not just words, it's actually sound. It has its own kind of sonic texture. And the dubbed voice has its own particular sonic texture. And it's something that really comes out very, very strongly when the dubbing actor has to dub these kind of non-articulate pieces of speech. Joan Pedder has written, has said in an interview that sounds such as moans, coughs, laughter, these kind of non-verbal sounds, present a real challenge for him in the same way that they present a real challenge for other dubbing actors. It's very, very difficult to do it in a way that makes it sound natural, and it's very difficult to kind of synchronize it with the body as well. And I think this is because this is when, what I'm trying to get at here, and I'm kind of aware of time, is that these are instances when sound is being produced in its most embodied expression. Yeah, think about it. Cough, laughter, it's kind of involuntary, and it's bringing the body rather than the mind into the voice. And I think this is, when you're watching a dubbed film, you really, really notice the moments of laughter, the moments of coughing, the moments of the sharp intake of breath. Okay, so in the dubbing studio, Joan Pedder has also said that he has to view Woody Allen's original performances 20 to 30 times until he can imitate the distinctive rhythm and syntax of the actor's original delivery. However, when it comes to Woody Allen's tone of voice, Joan Pedder is keen to emphasize that they have different voices, that they have different tones. Now, Joan Pedder's voice does not quite have that kind of sharp, almost unpleasant nasal timbre of Woody Allen's voice, and is more melodious, more pleasant to listen to. You might have come across the term photogenic. Some sound theorists use the term phonogenic, a sound that is nice to hear. Having a phonogenic voice in the dubbing industry is very, very important, because a dubbing actor, that's all the dubbing actor has, in their performance. Okay, whereas if you are a normal actor or a non-dubbing actor, the voice is just one of the many signs which make up the film performance, along with gesture, costume, facial expression, movement, and so on. And Woody Allen has quite a disappointing voice, but I think he overcompensates through, his other kind of visual signs, particularly the body. So there's a pleasure to be had in just listening quite often to the dubbed voice. Quite often the dubbed voice is an improvement on the original, sometimes, perhaps. Like all dubbed voices, the sonic texture, the sound of Joan Perez's voice is largely shaped also by his closeness to the microphone. So he's there in a dubbing studio that does not have any echoes, which in turn makes the voice sound quite dry and without depth, without reverb. Plus, dubbing actors tend to enunciate very, very clearly, so that they are very, very legible to the listener. So the crispness, the clearness of the dubbed voice can often be a striking contrast to the more naturalistic, messy-sounding dialogue, which is captured through direct sound. And this is intriguing because Woody Allen is a great fan of using very naturalistic sound. Yeah? He doesn't want any post-production sound at all, except for when it's being dubbed into another language. So it's quite contradictory there. So the dubbed voice kind of creates its own texture within the film. There's one that I think requires kind of further analysis, further attention. And whereas many people have said that dubbing kind of takes something away, distracts or kind of mutilates or destroys the film, what if we were to argue that dubbing kind of produces something new? Yeah? Okay, so moving towards the conclusion now. Whether imitated or dubbed, Woody Allen's vocal style reminds us of the split or the divide in all voices, whether they have been dubbed or not. Brandon LaBelle has written that the history of the modern voice is a history of the split subject. The multiplication of consciousness, identity as always divided, and by which voice is an operation that traverses these divides. Now, I think that Woody Allen's own apparent fascination with dubbing, or at the very least, a fascination with foreign language versions of himself, or maybe just a fascination with himself, is also precisely a fascination with this division, I think. The unrootedness of the dubbed voice, whose mobility refuses to be anchored to the body, reveals this kind of split between the sound and image in film. One that, British and American audiences and British and American films through direct sound have tried to hide. Okay, so in listening to Woody Allen's doubles, the split between voice and body, or between sound and the self, is not so much hidden, it's not so much concealed, as it is kind of celebrated. And so far from deceiving audiences, dubbing here ultimately appears to reveal the fundamental truth of the human voice. After all, the philosopher Mladlen Doller has written, I quote, "Every emission of the voice is, by its very essence, ventriloquism," end quote. And that's it. Thank you.